Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Mary Grace. It looks like we lost our guest, and hopefully he will come back on here in just a minute. We have a very interesting interview lined up for you today, and we're just going to wait and see if he gets back in. The link just got cut somehow. We've had some interesting things happening here on the Mary Grace show from a tech perspective. So this doesn't actually surprise me. So we'll see if he can come back. Give me just a second. Okay. Something very strange going on. As I'm waiting for him to see if we can get him back in, hopefully we won't have to restart, but if we do, we will. We have a very interesting discussion with Patrick Byrne. And some of you may recall Patrick Byrne as being front and center after the 2020 election. He was one of the main people who was telling us about some of the things that happened in the background with the voting machines, with the alleged hacking and things like that. And he's also known, very well known, as being the former CEO of Overstock.com. That's who we're having on the show. But as I said, we just lost him. He was with me here before we went live, and somehow he got clicked out again. So I think he was coming from a remote location. And let's see, while we're waiting for him, I think I will go ahead and play the trailer. We are going to be talking to him today about a three-part docuseries called The Enemy Within. And if you don't know the whole story of Russiagate, of what happened during the Trump presidency, the first presidency, of what happened during the 2020 election, I highly recommend that you stick around and watch the trailer and watch the interview, and then after this, go and watch this docuseries. It's amazing. I mean, it's compelling. It's gripping. You won't be able to stop. It's in 3 parts, but I recommend that you set aside time to watch the whole thing because it's one of those things where, you start the series and you just can't stop. That's how good it is. And if it weren't true, I would, how do I say this? I'm it makes me sad because it's all true, but it's one of the best stories I've ever heard, if that makes sense. I just wish that it weren't true. That's all. So let me play the trailer for you and see if we can get him back on here. Okay, Enemy Within trailer.
Byrne.
Patrick Byrne.
Patrick Byrne.
Patrick Byrne.
Patrick Byrne.
Pretty remarkable guy.
Very dynamic.
But a couple decades later, everything shifted. My name is Patrick Byrne. I've been labeled domestic extremist threat #1. I was deeply involved in the Russia investigation and in the Clinton investigation. I think it's about time I come clean.
Anyone who's known him long enough knows that he operates in a different world.
Freedom Fest is a libertarian conference that occurs in Las Vegas, and in 2015, I was invited to be the opening keynote. After my talk, there was a line of people waiting for my autograph and to talk with me for a minute and such.
Hello, my name is Maria Butina.
Maria Butina.
Maria Butina.
Maria Butina.
Maria Butina. Maria Butina.
Yes, that Maria Butina. So I picked Maria up from New York in a helicopter. She had told me that growing up in Russia in the 1990s, she had always seen America as this beacon of freedom, and she had wanted to experience the grandness of America, which is ironic because they were using Maria to smudge up the Republican Party, and they were using me to use Maria to smudge up the Republican Party. Because I was starting to realize I was being used in some kind of domestic political espionage.
There are 30, 40 people
following everything that you've been working on.
Okay. I hope that you are intrigued. Like I said, it's gripping. You won't be able to not you won't be able to stop. So just set aside enough time to listen to watch all 3 parts. We're still waiting for Patrick Byrne. He is having some trouble with his computer. And usually when we have these kind of tech issues, it means that we're in the right place. We're over the target and we're set to have a really good interview. So if you don't mind, just stick around for just a few minutes while we wait for him to get back on. Like I said, we had him in the wings, and as soon as I hit live, somehow we lost the connection. But in the meantime, I'll go over some of what we learn in the film. I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but basically, if you recall, during the very beginning of the 2016 election cycle, as early as 2015, we learned that the deep state made a plan to stop Donald Trump from getting elected. And part of that plan was, well, the plan centered on setting up a narrative of Russia collusion, accusing Donald Trump of being in collusion with the Russians to take over the White House. And that plan was put in place using different methods, but one of those was that one of those involved Patrick Byrne in kind of a roundabout way. And so we're going to learn more about that in the film. We're going to learn about the players involved in that, but even more importantly, one of the things that gets revealed during the film is just the utter depravity of the people in the deep state behind this entire Russia collusion uh, plot, whatever you want to call it. To me, it's one of the most disturbing realizations. It's one of the most disturbing revelations when you understand the extent to which these people would go. And we've seen that on so many levels. But when you watch the film and you see Patrick Byrne's involvement, it definitely confirms, like it sort of ties together things that you may have thought or suspected, but then it all comes kind of full circle. And it's interesting. A lot of you are going to resonate with this film as well because General Flynn appears in the film, and General Flynn has been a guest on the show a number of times. Of course, he's been involved. He was the first casualty in the Russia hoax. And so it's very interesting to have him appear in the film. Overall, it's a like I said, it's a very gripping, compelling, very well done film. It is produced and directed by Sparrow Pictures. If you have heard of Matt and Joy Thayer, they are the ones who created this film. And I got to tell you, it's just super high quality. And I hope that everybody will take advantage of it. I'm going to go ahead and put the link up here. We're still waiting for Patrick to come back, and hopefully it'll work. And if it doesn't, we'll reschedule with him and we'll get him back on. But let me go ahead and put this up now that I've talked up the film so much. This is the link. You can go. It's The Enemy Within. And if you use promo code Mary Grace, you're going to get 10% off. It's not that expensive anyway. I mean, you can download it. I think it's like $5. But go scan the link, go and download it, watch the film. It's just incredible. But don't watch it right now because we're live. Uh, so and let me think. I also have the link in the show description. I'll put it in the show description on all my channels as well, so that you can get the direct link just in case you're not able to scan it. But it's fantastic, and it's definitely a film that you're going to want to watch, not just on your phone. You're going to want to cast it up to your TV and really get the whole cinematic effect, because it really is like it kind of reminds me of the Bourne series, something like that, except it's real life. This is real life. This is really what happened to President Trump. It's what happened in 2016. It's what happened with Obama, Hillary, but more importantly, the deep state. This is the established political class that had and still has invested everything into preventing we the people from having power in this country. And of course, we know now that that was the biggest reason for going after Trump the way they did, and for continuing to do that, to do everything possible to prevent President Trump from taking office the first time. And we know that they're not done now at this juncture trying to prevent him from taking office, even though he won rightfully in this 2024 election. So it's a very interesting um, an interesting series. It's definitely going to help you tie some loose ends together of things that you may have heard about. It's going to refresh your memory. It's going to pique your memory about things that you may have forgotten about over the last 4 years, because so many things have happened since then. And we've been living under the treachery of the Biden administration. This is definitely going to open your eyes in a new way. And you're going to be mad because there's a lot to be angry about. And it's also going to give you additional prayer points because you're going to see a little bit deeper into the dark underbelly of the deep state and into the thought process and the way that they operate and the way that the intelligence communities operate and what motivates and drives them. So those are my takeaways. Let me just check my notes here and see uh, if we can get him back. It looks like we might have to reschedule. So I apologize, but these things happen sometimes. Uh, oh, wait a minute. I think he's here. Ah, I think we have him. Okay. Thank you everybody for waiting. Wait, we lost him again. Oh my goodness. So, all right, that was super quick. Um, uh, oh, let's try it again. Okay.
Sorry, my computer is down.
Here we
Right
go.
now, I'm coming through on my phone, but if my computer, if it comes back up, I'll switch
You
to that.
you look great. It's actually great. It's great. So I was filling the time. I gave the trailer and we have the link up so people can download the film. So it's all good. It's fine. Patrick Byrne, welcome. Welcome. You're on the Mary Grace show. And
Very great, such an honor. Thank you. Good to
yeah,
see you.
my audience is they're hanging out, they're patient. I think let me see if we're on Rumble. I didn't even check. Um, but like I said, we can definitely get this back up, and you're always welcome. You're welcome on the show anytime, Patrick. We don't
Oh,
even have to talk about the film. We can just talk. Let me see if we're on Rumble. That
and
may or may not have worked.
if by chance I'm able to get my computer does restart as we're talking, I won't
Mhm.
fiddle with it, but if it
Yeah.
restarts, I'll just switch back to the computer seamlessly.
Yeah, that sounds good, and it looks like we didn't even come up on Rumble. So, you know what? We're just gonna go with it. We're on X, we're on, Facebook, I think we're on YouTube, and, we have a tenuous relationship with them, so depending on what we talk about, we may or may not be on YouTube much longer, but we'll just do the best we can. So, welcome, everybody, if you're just coming in, just in case you stepped away because it didn't look like anybody but me, I have here with me Patrick Byrne. He's probably best known to a lot of you as the former owner and CEO of Overstock.com, but that there's way more. There's way more going on with Patrick than being an entrepreneur and a CEO. And I definitely recommend that you watch this film because it gives you a lot of the backstory as well. So, Patrick, I know that you have a limited time today. I've introduced the film. I have given a little bit of the talking points, but um, can you give us sort of like let's just do like the top 3 takeaways that you want people to have from this film. And again, I do wanna have you back on when we're gonna have more time because we could really go in depth on this. But let's just get some highlights here.
Well, so the hurdle to get people over to understand, first of all, and I feel like I'm ripping my guts out to say this because I thought this would never come out till 50 years after I was dead, but I've had a lifelong relationship with Uncle Sam. I'm not a spy, I'm not part of the CIA, but I've had this odd relationship. I was an academic. Anyway, so in that context, I got used to do different things all my life, and usually for causes that had to do with peace and occasionally with things having to do with fighting crime. In that context, I got pulled into the Russian collusion origins, which was a complete hoax. The party line is that it started in July of 2016. That's a flat lie. It all started July of 2015. It was all set up, it was all manufactured, and I was part of manufacturing it. I didn't know what I was doing. I was taking orders from them and thinking I was helping them, but it became painfully aware to me by, say, Christmas of 2015 that they were constructing a scandal on the Republicans. And it really wasn't even about Donald Trump. It was Trump, Rubio, Cruz, or whoever came to prominence in the
Mhm.
Republican Party was going to be hit with a Russian scandal.
Okay.
Secondly, they had me bribe Hillary Clinton for what they told me was law enforcement reasons. They were going to prosecute her, and I happened to have, was not a Hillary hater. In fact, if you look in the records, I was actually her biggest donor in Utah in 2004. Now, that's a bit misleading to say. It happened because some Democrats came to me and actually wanted me to run for Congress, and I
Okay.
said no. I said no. I've never revealed this before, by the way. But the Democratic Party came and asked me to run for Congress, and I said no. But to be a nice guy, they said, look, the Iowa caucus is coming up. I said, I'll get you a private jet and I'll fly you there and back. So I sent the poobahs of the Democratic Party to Iowa and back. That $25,000 turned out to have to be reported, and we ended up making it. It
Mm.
was officially a donation to Hillary Clinton. So technically, I
Okay.
was the biggest, but it didn't really come from,
In kind. It was like an in-kind donation.
right. And it
Yeah.
wasn't like and I wasn't a Hillary fan, but I was
Mhm.
okay with Bill.
Mhm.
I'm a
Mhm.
libertarian Republican. But so my point was, I'm not a Hillary hater or something. I wasn't.
Mhm.
But at the request of the FBI and what I was told Barack Obama, I set her up for an $18 million bribe, which she took on January 14th, 2016. And my assignment was to get a certain bag man from Azerbaijan in a room with Hillary Clinton for 10 minutes. I was given the assignment around Thanksgiving 2015, and it happened on January 14th, 2016. And I can go into the details of how it happened. But after it happened, I was told I had to forget it. And I didn't like
Right.
that. I thought about it. And I went back and asked why. And eventually I was told by 2 FBI agents and another man who was the go-between between Comey and CIA Director Brennan. Now, normally I have nothing to do with the CIA, and it's kind of my red
Mhm.
line. But this guy showed up and he was involved representing Director Brennan. And what I was told was, this is early February 2016. I was told, Patrick, you need to understand that at this point, President Obama has his people. And this is like the key minute.
Yeah.
If your viewers listen to this, you will understand the last decade. At this point, Patrick, President Obama has his people across the federal bureaucracy, but especially the DOJ.
Mhm.
Hillary is going to be president, and nothing's going to change that. But think of her while she's president. Think of her as being a Bunsen burner within the DOJ. And the information about the bribe will sit on that Bunsen burner. And the hand on the Bunsen burner will be one of Barack Obama's people. If Hillary's a good girl, that flame stays low. If she's a bad girl and thinks for herself, the flame gets turned up. That way, Barack Obama is going to manage Hillary Clinton for 8 years. Then she steps down and Michelle's going to run. And Patrick, that's the plan. The plan turned out to be called Operation Snow Globe. Brennan, Comey, and Obama wanted Hillary in a snow globe, like the
Mhm.
Christmas globe. and that they could shake up and own the 8 years she was president.
Right.
My bribe was just bait to lure her to step into the snow globe.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah.
then go ahead.
And
That
that well,
that
and
was
then and then Trump won, right? I mean, but
and it all became this fake Russian story. They took
yes.
that off the back burner and made that the front burner.
Okay. Okay. So that was that was not really the initial plan, because they thought they had planned for Hillary to win, right? They never thought she would lose.
Yes.
Now,
Right.
something that came out in the film that was interesting is that you said that Obama wanted the way that they had it set up was for Obama to be 24 years in power, really. And I've always heard of the 16-year plan to destroy America. Have you seen that? There's an infographic here. I'm going to put it up here because this is kind of what we've kind of been told that the plan was. So 8 years of Obama, 8 years of Hillary Clinton, and of course Trump came right there and interrupted it. But you can see so many of the things that are on this flowchart, cut military funding, open the borders, close U.S. military bases, like boom, 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 really to destabilize the United States. Of course, Trump interrupted that, but according to your sources, it was beyond that. It actually was Obama, Hillary, then Michelle, and that would have given us 24 years of Obama. And obviously, it was interrupted. Rudely interrupted by Trump because they
Right.
thought that he was a buffoon and that he wouldn't actually pull it off. So they didn't take him seriously. They didn't take us seriously, the deplorables. And instead, we got Biden, and we can tell that they accelerated. They did everything possible to accelerate the destruction of America during that time. I want to ask you though, with Trump coming back in power, there's and winning this election, there's like an eerie kind of silence right now that it's almost like they conceded too easily. Do you
Oh
feel that?
yes.
Okay.
Very much.
Okay.
Very much.
What do you feel happening? What do you anticipate happening in the next, I think it's 61 days before he takes office?
Well, they've waited 100 years. This is a Bolshevik revolution. They've waited 100 years for this. It's hard to imagine they're going to give it up so easily,
Hmm.
quietly, without a fight. I worry about something dramatic happening in the next 2 weeks. It could be that they're starting World War III over in Ukraine
Yeah.
deliberately.
Yeah.
This is the craziest war in my lifetime that doesn't need to be fought at all. I was raised in geopolitics by some real hardline guys, a guy named Jack Vesey, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs under Reagan. So no one could accuse him of being a softie. He was a hawk's hawk.
Hmm.
And yet he and George Shultz and Henry Kissinger were together, and I had a chance to be there in early 2015. And they all agreed it was nuts for us to be trying to pull Ukraine into NATO. That it was super provocative. If Ukraine joins NATO, then America is putting tanks 250 miles from Moscow. Well,
Right.
Moscow's been invaded in the last 200 years. It's been invaded 4 or 5 times. It's super provocative for us to be pulling Ukraine into NATO. But for some weird reason, Hillary and Obama and Biden have just been absolutely adamant that we have to that we got to start World War III over Ukraine. Whereas these hawks, these total hawks, the greatest hawks of the Reagan generation, they all said we don't have to pull Ukraine into NATO. So it has something to do with something other than national security. And so this war is totally, we could have just promised we won't take Ukraine into NATO for 20 years. And that's all it would have taken. That's all it would have taken. Putin offered that deal beforehand. After the war started, within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, he and Zelensky had initial deal to say, you know what, we'll stop this war. It was us and Boris Johnson from the UK. We insisted to Zelensky and bribed him and paid him off so he would continue this war. So there's some reason that we have to have this war that no one can really articulate. I'm on the Council on Foreign Relations. And I haven't had anything to do with them for 15 years, but still read the stuff. There's no, this did not come out of any organic thinking about our
Right. Right.
planning. This was top down, and somebody up there has a real reason. We just have to start World War III over Ukraine.
Mhm.
So these reckless things we're doing with missiles now,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
they've started firing. And Putin said this is for us to give long range missiles to Ukraine and permission to fire them into Moscow, into Russia. That's an act of war we're committing against, and for what? We've destroyed this country. We've destroyed a generation.
Yeah.
And there was such a perfectly reasonable alternative. Today, there's a perfectly reasonable alternative. Perfectly reasonable.
Is it
Zelensky's destroyed his country. We've
Mhm.
destroyed it. And they just cannot accept the alternative. They want to start World War III in the next 61 days.
Well, just prior to this announcement about Biden, authorizing the missile launches, I don't think it was Biden. I mean, let's be real.
That's Obama.
They're blaming it on Biden. I mean, the New York Times is blaming it on Biden. But, you've got Anthony Blinken coming out and saying we're gonna send every available penny to Ukraine. And in the meantime, we have our neighbors just south of where I live in Western North Carolina. We have entire families living in tents out of the destruction of Hurricane Helene, and the FEMA is telling them that they don't even qualify for temporary structures because they're in a floodplain. And I mean, it's insane. These people are, the American people are in there rebuilding and taking care of their neighbors in a way that is completely opposite of what happened like during Katrina. We had 75,000 troops on the ground. We had FEMA trailers everywhere. It's not happening in Western North Carolina. People's kids are getting taken away from them. In the meantime, we've got our Secretary of State standing up and saying every available penny is going to Ukraine. So that's a slap in the face to the Americans. And then a few days later, we have news that we are sending missile attacks into Russia from Ukraine using American military equipment. Um, it's crazy. Now,
Deranged.
what is
It's
it? Is
deranged.
it yeah, and is it the biolabs? Is it the money laundering? I mean, I would love to talk to Rudy Giuliani about this because he knows a lot about Ukraine. He's been there and he has
So high.
right? Yeah. Okay,
I can
so
tell you some things.
okay. Yeah.
I was in Ukraine 6 years ago,
Okay.
and doing business for Overstock. I was trying. I think I'm back up on my computer.
Oh,
Stand
interesting.
by.
Okay.
Ah, okay, we're back up on my computer. I'm going to turn this off.
Right, we're
Meg.
having everybody close your eyes, don't get dizzy. Oh, we lost him again. I had a feeling that would happen. So, this is a very interesting interview that we have going on with Patrick Byrne. Stick around. He is in a remote location, and I think some of the issues that are happening are to do with that. But we will just keep going because this is a fascinating discussion, and we're talking about The Enemy Within. This is a docuseries that has recently come out, and I will be sharing the links with you. But while we're waiting for him to come back, let's put the link up again. You can get 10% off of this with promo code Mary Grace if you jump on that link and purchase the download. And then once you have it, you can watch it over and over. Here we go. So we're back. Patrick, I think it was working better on your phone. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah. So, if we lose you again, just come back on your phone.
Okay.
Let me hide the link here. But, yeah, so we're talking about Ukraine, and so everything that we're talking about here is related. So, if for those of you who are thinking, you mentioned the movie, the docuseries, now you're talking about Ukraine. It's all related. So stick with
Oh, yeah.
us. Don't leave. Definitely watch the film, but let's just take advantage of having Patrick here now because we do want insight into what is happening. It's not just the Democrats that are pushing us into war. There's plenty of Republicans who have voted repeatedly to fund Ukraine. And one of the central tenets of the film is the betrayal from within our own party. That's why it's called The Enemy Within. So tell us a little bit again, Patrick, about what you know about Ukraine, there has to be some compelling reason that they're pushing so hard for this. I mean, it could be that they just want to saddle Trump with a world war when he takes over the next administration.
They may want to collapse everything before then. They just may want to collapse it and use war powers that just can't, the president just declares this, and it declares a dictatorship. They think they can do. There's a bunch of Philadelphia lawyers who think that they can. Tell you though, the government's not on their side. I have lots of communication with the government at this point. Many pieces of the government, and other than the eggheads at the top, the government's not going to stand for it. The DHS, the military, even the people in the FBI who are not the complete traitors at the top are not going to stand for it. But I can tell you the DHS isn't going to stand for it. And I'm not Mayorkas, of course, he's part of it. But I mean, beneath that said, the level of colonel and down within the military and the DHS, their equivalent, they've had enough.
Okay.
I can tell you, I was in Ukraine 6 years ago, and I was doing some business, and I discovered that the people I was doing business with were mafia. But it turns out that they said, look, there's 3 mafias in Ukraine. And I learned how they all work and such. And they said there's a group that's pro-Russia, there's a group that's pro-NATO, and then there's a group that's just pro-Ukraine and wants a neutral, independent Ukraine. We're the mafia that were associated with these independent, neutral Ukraine. And they actually wanted to give me a letter to bring to President Trump. And part of, that's how they set people up. And so I said, no, I can't take a letter. I can't take a letter, anything like that. And they really, one of the regrets of my life is I didn't just say, hey, meet me in Paris. See, meet me in Paris with your letter in a week, and I'll take it, and I'll know someone who gives it to Trump. And I didn't. Anyway, I said, why can't you just take this letter, just write your letter and take it to our embassy? They said, oh, no, Mr. Byrne, your embassy is in bed with our rival mafia, and they're completely corrupt. Last year, your country sent $5 billion to us. $4 billion of it got stolen, and it got stolen out by the mafia that's our competitor, and a whole bunch of it gets shared back with your embassy. And your embassy is a bunch of Obama, Biden holdovers. They're in bed with this mafia. So that's the first thing to know. Our embassy there is a bunch of Obama, Biden holdovers that are in bed with a mafia there. And also, I'll tell you, I've had contact with a whistleblower over the last 18 months. I haven't gotten the proof of this, but I've had contact with a whistleblower who's told me that from the beginning of the war, 90% of what we were sending was getting stolen. Because of all the eyes on it, it's down to 60%. But that money, all those $250 billion or whatever we've sent, most of that's getting stolen, and it's feeding a lot of mouths. And don't be surprised if a bunch of those mouths aren't named Lindsey Graham and Chuck Schumer. And, I mean, our own politicians are probably getting.
This is what we've suspected: that it's a big money laundering operation. I mean, when Blinken came out and said all these dollars were going, it's just obvious. Okay, we're going to launder as much cash as possible between now and January 20th back into the pockets of Raytheon, BlackRock, but really the individuals as well, right? And they get kickbacks, right? They're on committees, they get kickbacks. I mean, they have creative ways.
There's a saying among those who fight corruption that funds, F-U-N-D-S, funds are fungible. Funds are fungible. Meaning, so when all this money goes over there, that money gets turned into, when we send airplanes of arms over, you go back a year, there was a plane that left Ukraine on its way to Egypt, I think, and it crash landed in Greece, a cargo plane, and the Greeks went through it, and it was filled with the most advanced weapons. So we're sending $1 billion of weapons that's actually getting loaded onto a different plane to fly to Egypt, where it's being sold in the black market. So funds are fungible. No matter how we send the value over, it can be fungible, means it can be turned into different forms and move around and stuff. So the funds are fungible. So if we're sending $250 billion, something like 150 to 200 billion of that has been stolen. Now I have a whistleblower but I can't say who, but who has the proof. He says somebody from Eastern Europe. I'm not going to say where in Eastern Europe, but I don't have the proof, and I haven't. Anyway, I've come very close to getting it, the paperwork. So that's one thing that's going on. But another way to understand this is the Bolshevik Revolution. The Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. It turns out that, I used to always understand the Russian Revolution in terms of economic theories. And some people think the best way to organize production is this, and some people think it's that. That's all the ideological smokescreen. At the end of the day, there were a bunch of people who hated the Russians, the Christian Russians, and they took over. And I always wonder, how could you exterminate 50 million of your own people? Well, they didn't really view them that way. And they just when they exterminated 30 million in just gulags and stuff like that, and 20 million they starved to death. They exterminated 50 million basically white Christians because they hated the Christians. They hated their own country. And I think that we have a bunch of Bolsheviks. This is the overthrow of the American Republic, and they hate us. They hate our country. And I don't think they care at all what happens. They want to see it collapse. They seem to have been doing everything they can to collapse our country. And maybe they want to see if they can pull the last leg out from under the table before January 20th comes. Or they do want to set things up for Trump in as difficult a way as they can.
It wouldn't surprise me from what we've seen from the Democrat Party and their enablers, many of whom are Republicans, rhinos, it's a death cult. And what you're saying and what you're explaining about the Bolshevik Revolution really makes sense. And that's something that I have kind of had an inkling about all along, what happened to the Tsar, to the not just the ruling class of Russia. I mean, there weren't 50 million people in the higher elite echelons of Russia. It was Orthodox Christians, right? What we know of as Orthodox Christians today. And it's very similar. There's a lot of parallels to what's happening, the anti-white nationalist movement, the anti-Christian movement that's happening in this country. It makes sense. I mean, I just had a kind of an aha moment when you said that, because I've had that in the back of my mind when I think about the Bolshevik Revolution. There was more to it than what we've been presented from an economic standpoint. I mean, not unlike the French Revolution, right? But I mean, we could kind of go down that rabbit trail, but let's come back because I want to talk about the Senate.
Okay.
There's something that happens in the film where it's you're talking about your interactions being brought in to talk to senators, and this was earlier on before any of this happened, but you were brought in and given really free rein to do things, and it was granted by the Senate Judiciary Committee. And I think that going into this next government, I think it's important for people to understand the power of the Senate, because I don't think people get the extent to which being on a committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee, the importance of that. And if they do, I think it will help them to understand what's going on in Pennsylvania, in Arizona, in Wisconsin, with the Democrats doing everything they can to retain control of the Senate. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, the Senate Judiciary Committee, it was explained to me, is the last bulwark protecting the Constitution. Because Patrick, we have the authority to investigate corruption.
Yeah.
And that authority cuts across every power within government. Our power transcends, was the word they used, every power within government.
Amazing.
We investigate corruption. And if we think something's corrupt, we look into it, and no one gets to tell us. It doesn't, if we think the nuclear arms production is corrupt, we look into it, and no one tells the Senate Judiciary Committee, oh, you don't have the right clearance. We get to look into anything we want. So we're the last guarantors of the Constitution. And they put me to work. This is where I get so squeamish, explaining that I had all these relationships across government, and I had for many, many years, most of my life, since really I was a student in China, or shortly thereafter. And then, so I was not a spy, but I had a lot of relationships. I got crosswise with Wall Street in 04, 05. And the Senate Judiciary Committee, and in the course of fighting that, I had a whole bunch of evidence of corruption on Wall Street. And I did what I thought any normal American would do. You take it to the SEC, you take it to the DOJ, you take it to the Senate Banking Committee or the House Financial Services. I thought life, as I think I said in that book, I thought life worked like the Pelican Brief, that Julia Roberts figures out the evil corporation scheme. She writes up a term paper, submits it. Oh my gosh, the Washington Post swoops in and the DOJ swoops in. Life doesn't work like that. The corruption is feeding a lot of mouths. And all those people come out of those shadows and try to destroy you.
Yeah.
So that's what really happened. And so the Senate Judiciary Committee kind of tapped me on the shoulder and got to know me. And they had me, the only time I've been a spy is when I was a spy for them against the US government. They had me moving around within the government and reporting back to them on where I thought the corruption was and who was doing what, and blocking things and such. And after about a year and a half of that, they called me in. And there was this crazy conversation that's depicted nearly word for word in the movie. And the movie, I didn't make the movie. General Flynn made the movie, but I had written a book that came out 6 months earlier. It's all in that book. And that scene is nearly word for word. And where they said, we think you're right. There's some kind of corrupt force taking over the US government. It's our job to stop it, but we can't stop it. And some days it's like it's a foreign nation. Some days it's and they went on and on. I was finally like, I felt like I'd surfaced after a long swim underwater, because I'd been saying this for a year and a half and everyone had been telling me I was crazy.
Yeah.
And finally interrupted. I'll never forget. I interrupted Chairman Specter. I said, I know. This is what I've been saying. How are you even going to stop something like that? And he goes, we're going to stop it because we have you and you're going to stop it. And this is what you're going to do with your life. You're going to, and they told me that we have this transcendent power and we are giving you that. They showed me a letter that basically said, I can't be anything. They said, the letter says something about the Senate, they're concerned about systemic corruption infiltrating the federal institutions of our nation's government. And I think that's word for word. And then the next paragraph said the Senate Judiciary Committee requests Patrick Byrne be shown extraordinary latitude under the laws of the United States in his efforts to disrupt corruption within the government or something like that. And they said, this is not a pardon. You can't go kill anybody. But short of that, this is going to make it really unlikely any federal prosecutor or any prosecutor ever touches you. And they told me this had last been done in World War II. Well, funny, odd. I mean, and they even said, we know that you're different. We get that they'd gotten to know me for about a year, over the course of a year and a half. And they said, we get that you're a different guy. We get that you're a horse of a different color. And I remember this one senator, and everybody laughed. They get that I'm eccentric, but they said you're going to this year. And the other funny thing was no one asked. No one was saying, would you be willing to do this? They were telling me, this is what you're going to do with your life, Patrick. We need you to do this. So this is what you're going to do. Is you're going to disrupt this. You're going to get to the bottom. We may not be senators when you finish. We may not be alive when you finish, but this is what you're going to do with your life, Patrick.
Yeah.
So unbeknownst to now, then I continued. Then they sent me back to continue working with the government and working with different things, fighting crime, helping the National Security Council, and doing all the other things that were part of my life for many years. I've never been married and I have no family. And basically what I did outside my professional career is I had this strange other life. But what I was really doing was looking for that corruption.
Yeah.
And around 2010, I started bumping my head on the deep state. And I can't explain in public why or what the circumstances, but I started realizing that there was things happening that were not making sense. In particular, there were opportunities that were not making sense. Opportunities that we were not, and they always tell you, well, you just didn't know all the facts. If you know all the facts, you'd understand why we're doing what we do. Well, about 2010, 2011, I started to have real doubts. Now, Barack Obama promoted me
by around 2011 to something called a national, and I hate this word because I don't view what I've done as been an intelligence. I'm not a spook, I'm not a spy, but
Mhm.
I got called, I visited one day and told, you've been designated by President Obama a national intelligence asset, which means you're going to be our ace in the hole for lots of very difficult situations. Keep yourself in shape and blah, blah, blah. So, and again, nothing has to do with spying or so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Well, in 2015 is when these orders got really crazy, where I got ordered to bribe Hillary Clinton, and then it turned out to be so they could blackmail her. And
Mhm.
I got instructed, this wonderful young woman, Maria Butina, showed up in
Yeah.
America. They knew about her the day she landed from me. She came and introduced herself to me the day she landed. And
Mhm.
I was 5 minutes into the conversation. I was writing my report for Washington in my head. So there was,
Mhm.
I was, as I say in the movie, I was about 60% optimistic this could lead to something good. 30% worried because she was talking about living in DC with her boyfriend, a Republican big shot, and sort of getting to know different Democrats and Republicans in town. And 10% I wanted to see, I had my suspicions and I wanted to see what happened. And so I did what she wanted. I could have opened doors for her into the foreign policy world, but I didn't. I let the FBI know this Russian
Mhm.
gal is up, and she's worth getting to know. She's worth keep she, but she's kind of swanking around Washington as her plan with our
Mhm.
politicians. That's normally the type of thing Uncle Sam would have a very strong opinion about, I assure you. But instead, basically, the orders became let it happen. In fact, there were on occasion I greased skids for her at the
Mhm.
direction of my bosses, including, for example, that I give in the movie, is Chris Christie reached out to see me. I'm known in political circles, and he wanted to meet me, and he was running for president. And I was told, bring Maria Butina and have her come into the end of the meeting. And that will, when she reports in Washington, it will make your stock go up. I mean, in Moscow, it will make your stock go up. So I went and met Chris Christie for an hour. And the last 5 minutes, I brought Maria in and they had a nice conversation. They used that to get a warrant on Chris Christie. That's what they were doing this whole time. She was moving around Washington. They were using it to legally get warrants on all these people.
Mm.
And they were
And
using
that's
it
what
to,
they tried to set up Trump initially, or Don Jr., right? To get a they tried to
yeah,
set him up, right, with a one-on-one kinda thing.
right. They tried.
Interesting.
She at one point told me she was going to be meeting him privately, Don
Yeah.
Jr. It was all being worked out. And I
Mhm.
reported this. Now, it never happened. Just to be clear, it never happened, although they both did later attend a dinner, a small dinner of 15 or
Mhm.
20 people. But there was a point where there was she told me some big shots were setting up a meeting that she would be one on one with Don Jr. for an hour. And they were talking politics and that she was going to have a back door into the Trump administration. Well, there's no way the FBI would normally let that happen. But they told me, let it happen. I thought I was going to get orders to whisk her. So we had an affair, and which she's a lovely gal. I love spending time with her. But I did it in part. It was a very nice way for me to keep tabs on her. If every 2 months she would sneak away from her boyfriend and meet me somewhere, and we'd spend a
Mhm.
weekend, it was a very useful way for me to keep tabs on what was going on. I thought that they were going to tell me, pull her away to the Bahamas for the weekend, do something to get her. No, they said, let her do it. Well, that meeting never happened, but that's it was in the course of these things, I started realizing they're deliberately using this girl to smudge up the Republican Party. That's what
Right.
they're doing. I
Yeah.
knew by
Yeah.
just 2015 they were manufacturing a scandal. And I started calling it in my mind a Can O Russia scandal, that there was going to be a Can O Russia scandal on a shelf.
Mhm.
And someday they were going to take it, they were going to
Right.
shake it up and spray it all over the
Right.
Republican Party.
So they were
You know,
setting the stage, just in case Hillary didn't win. I mean, that was, well, it was
right.
like their insurance policy. That's what they called it. That's what the FBI agents, that's what Comey
That's
called it,
what
right?
Strzok called his girlfriend.
Yeah, Strzok,
They did,
yeah.
they did,
Oh, we lost him again. Oh, he's back. Let's see. Now it's dark. Let's see if we can get him back. We're in the middle of this interesting discussion, and we'll see if he comes back. This is Pat. We're waiting for Patrick Byrne, and we'll see what happens. Let's see. Patrick, if you can hear me, we don't have you on camera, and I don't think we have any audio either, but you may be able to hear me. We will see. Okay, we'll wait until his image comes back. So for those of you who are just coming in, if you're not familiar, we're talking to Patrick Byrne. He is the subject of this film, The Enemy Within. This is an in-depth look into the Russia hoax, as well as what happened in the 2020 election. Here he is. He's back. Okay, so there we go. And if you scan the QR code, you get the film, you get a 10% off with promo code Mary Grace. But let's get back to the conversation. Patrick, I want to come back to the Senate quickly because one of the things, we know that they're trying to hold on to the Senate. We're seeing some real jackassery happening up in Pennsylvania. I mean, to the point where people are defying Supreme Court rulings to count illegal ballots. I mean, it's insane. But the Senate Judiciary Committee, I believe that they're going to be at the center of turning things around for our country in protecting the Constitution. Oh, we're losing him again. Let's see if he can come back.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is this?
Oh.
Can you
We
hear
got
me?
audio.
I'm here.
We've
I'm
got
here.
audio.
I'm trying to figure
Okay.
this out.
That's okay.
Sorry about the jackassery here.
You might
Let me-
have
trying to-
to touch the audio
go. There it is.
icon on your screen. There we are.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're sideways. So I don't know if you heard what I was saying about Senate
did.
Judiciary.
Yes.
Okay, we've got
It's important to keep the Senate
Yeah.
Judiciary because it's important to keep the Senate Judiciary. But just remember, no matter what they do, Trump can very quickly, after he's in power, they can order, frankly, what I wish he had done in December 2020. They can go back and look at these records and they're going to find fraud super quickly and
Right,
everything's going to be.
This is-
I even think SCOTUS has had enough. SCOTUS is ready to
Okay.
do something muscular.
And that's interesting because, in all of the cases that were attempted to be brought before SCOTUS, they said that they don't have standing, they don't want to weigh in on an election. But my question is this, and I realize you may not be able to answer this, but do you have contact now with members of the Senate Judiciary Committee? Are you going to have any involvement going forward as a truth teller, as a so-called, I guess, kind of a whistleblower in a way? How is that relationship still there?
No, but it's funny. I wish they had included this in the movie. The guys who made the movie wrote the Senate Judiciary Committee and got a written response that said the senators will not confirm if there is or is not a letter, if there is or was or was not a meeting,
Mhm.
and if there was a meeting, whether they were in the meeting or not in the meeting, they will not confirm. However, somebody I know privately met with Chuck Grassley a year ago
Okay.
and said, "Is this crazy story Patrick Byrne tells true?" And he says Chuck Grassley laughed and said, "Yes, we know Patrick Byrne. Yes, there is a letter. Yes, we're keeping the letter. It's all true." And it's already been confirmed. Some people who worked in the staffers
Yeah.
have already confirmed. They do say this in the movie. They reached 2 staffers who confirmed, yes, there's a very strange letter in the file of the Senate Judiciary Committee from 2006. So I won't be there. If anything, I'll be there as a witness.
Okay.
I'll save everybody the DOJ time. I've committed
And do you
50,000
think
years of felonies.
so
in the
do you
process of
think
getting
do
stuff
you
up.
think that we're going to see justice for 2020? Do you think that that's going to come in this next administration? Obviously, Trump is in the mood to clean house and to restore rule of law to this country. So many people including the J6ers, have been egregiously wronged. Do you see that come? Do you see a restoration? Do you see any of these people facing justice for what they did?
Well, I hope to God, yes. It would take President Trump about 8 minutes. For example, in Georgia, there is a stack of 150,000 ballots from 2020 that are still existing, that are by segregated off by judges' orders. There's a dozen affidavits from different people from November 2020 who say those 150,000 mail-in ballots are all flat. They were never folded. The circles, the votes are all perfectly filled in like only a computer would
Yep.
do.
Yep.
And 93% of them are for Joe Biden. So if you do the math, that means 140, and there's a dozen affidavits from different people who saw this at the time.
Yep. Yep.
So he can send in DHS troops in 8 minutes to look at that. And if if they find, if that's actually what there is, that means 140,000 ballots were for, that means the ballots are fake. 140,000 were Biden, 10,000 for Trump. That's a split of 130,000. Georgia was only decided by, 10,000, 12,000 votes. There's 130,000 rigged right there. And that's just one of six different places that we can do this. So it'll take him 10 minutes if he wants to get to the bottom of 2020. We know, so he has to, well, I can't tell him what to do, but I would imagine he's going to do that. We can't let this slide.
Right.
If
Right.
only so we
And
can fix the system. I hope he practices forgiveness. I want us to show why we're such a unique country in that we get through this without bloodshed and nobody being hung from street lamps. I want to show the world what what Christian forgiveness is and all that stuff. But you have to get to the truth. You start by getting the truth and then you move forward from there. It'll take 10 minutes to get the truth.
right.
Georgia
And
doesn't.
well, and we, it's not just Georgia, obviously. But and one of the states that really isn't even considered a battleground state, Colorado, we have seen a huge, massive destruction of justice and rule of law in that country. Tina Peters is serving prison time based on the actions of Jenna Griswold, the Secretary of State there, because she was a whistleblower and she uncovered um, the truth about what was happening with their elections, and it continues to happen. And now we know that Jenna Griswold released master passwords. You probably understand that better than I do. I mean, she should be in jail now,
Jenna
but all the wrong
Griswold,
people are in jail. Do you
right,
think
all the
anything
wrong.
is going to happen? Are the people like Tina Peters going to be pardoned? I mean, do you see justice coming for them?
Well, first of all, the appeal on Tina Peters went in
I think yesterday.
yesterday,
Okay, yeah.
and now that appeal would normally take a year.
Okay.
It's possible for her to be released on bail pending the
Pending
repeal.
appeal. Okay.
If they have any, I mean, it's really going to be hard to maintain Christian forgiveness if they don't, they Philadelphia law that. They should let her out on appeal as this all gets worked through the system and decided. But she was, one of the main things she was accused of is in a video she had revealed in a blurred fashion a password on the machine. Now the password on the machine was password 123. And she was trying to reveal, and I'm going to put a foot asterisk on that, but password 123. And she was trying to reveal that the passwords on these systems are just set, factory set, and no one ever changed them. And they're simple little passwords like password 123.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just so you know, so I don't get arrested. Not that they need that to arrest me, but it isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't password 123. It's something similar and similarly simple. But she did that, and that's part of the reason that this horrifies. You did this for Mesa County. This is compromised national security. Jenna Griswold turns out to have put online the passwords for 63 out of 64 counties in Colorado, and the passwords are things like, okay, I'm just going to say it. The password's like the date of the election.
Yeah.
Like November 5th, 2020,
Yeah.
November 5th, 2024. That's the password.
Mhm.
And that's true all over the country. So she released, I'm just saying what Jenna Griswold has revealed in her breach
Yeah.
of security, not only for 63 out of 64 counties, but really wherever those machines are used across the country. The password was the date of the election. And 1,000 times worse. So if the people involved in railroading Tina
Tina
Peters
Peters.
have any sense, they should be falling over themselves
Hmm.
right now to
Yeah.
let her out,
Yeah.
because my forgiveness muscle is pretty tired. And if at this point we still
Yeah.
have to worry about their doubling down,
Yeah. Jenna
that's
Griswold is not going to go to bat for any of those people. She is not going to cover for them. She's going to throw them to the wolves. And speaking of forgiveness, I think a lot of people, the chat's going crazy. They're like, I am not forgiving. But here's the thing: the forgiveness is for us, but the accountability and the consequences are for the perpetrators. We can do both. We can see them brought to justice, because these actions must have consequences to prevent this ever happening in our country again. For our own personal sanity's sake, Jesus does say to forgive, not so that the people can get off scot-free, but so that we don't have tormented souls in carrying the resentment and the anger toward these people for what they did. It only hurts us. I just wanted to clarify that. I mean, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I think that, from the chat, so many people are saying, "Oh, hell no. These people need to be accountable." I don't know if you can see the chat, but this is really striking a nerve with our listeners, because we've been waiting so long to see these people come to justice, not just because of the immediacy of getting the satisfaction, but really for the preservation of our country, to prevent this ever happening again. This is a 250 year event, right? This is a revolution unlike anything since 1776. I think.
Oh yeah, it is. Just remember Nelson Mandela. He got out of prison after 27 years, and he knew that if he had tried to try everybody who'd been involved in apartheid, it would have started a civil war. What are you going to do? Hang 100,000 people?
Right.
So he created this process called Truth and Reconciliation, where he
Yeah.
said, everyone is going to get a period. I forget what it was, 60 days. You can come forward in these town
Hmm.
halls and you can say anything. You can say, I was a prisoner, I was a guard in that prison for 18 years. And while I was
Hmm.
there, I murdered 3 prisoners. I tortured people regularly. Whatever you said, you were forgiven for. Now, if you left something out, and then later they found it, they could prosecute you. And given the fact that your other
Interesting.
guards were coming out and doing their thing, everyone had a real incentive to get the truth out. And in the space of, I think I should read up on it, but I think it was just 30 or 60 days, decades of this horrible history was put on the table, and they got
Hmm.
past it. That he deserved the Nobel Prize for that.
Hmm.
And we have to practice. We have to at least give that a chance. Now, if the people don't come forward, I got in trouble for saying a month ago, these guys are going to be looking at blow torches and piano wire. And I don't mean that literally. I mean that
Right. Right.
I know I'm not, but
Right.
I suspect if I have one role, when this is all over, I want to get home and I want to be with my mules and my cats. But if I do anything for the President Trump, it would be, I'd like to be part of
Okay.
managing that process.
Hmm.
And
Right. I think he's started the ball rolling on that in terms of the border. I think that this time period right now, um, between now and inauguration, people who are in this country illegally are taking the opportunity to leave so that they don't get into the judicial system, because he's making it very clear that come January 20th, the time is up. And so, that I know that Trump is he always gives people the opportunity to do the right thing. And I think that's what you're saying, is that, there's possibly that opportunity, and we would like to see that. However, I know that everybody that I know, all of my listeners, I mean, close to 100,000 that follow me, almost every single person, they want the truth. They want transparency. Nobody gets a chance to come clean in private. if there is a Truth and Reconciliation, we want to see the Peter Strzok's and the Lisa Pages and the Jim Comeys and the John Brennans. We want to see it publicly because the people need accountability and they need to see um, uh, closure. We need closure to know that our country is being restored and that the people who did these things are going to be held accountable and that they're going to that the truth part of Truth and Reconciliation is that they're going to have to speak the truth to all of us, not just in behind closed doors.
And then go on with their lives. Go on with their lives. Go back to being college professors. If you let everybody know, let everyone know, whatever the truth is, that you were making the students take these clot shots while you
Mhm.
were getting saline. Let everybody know that you knew all about this.
Mhm.
And let everybody, can I tell you the biggest secret? I've been told this is the biggest secret in the US government, and they're trying to figure out how to manage this when this gets out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, this is only going to make sense when you really see the movie. But do you remember? And this is kind of hard to talk to a woman about. But what did I do in the movie after I realized what I was in the middle of?
You set up your handlers and I don't want to spill the beans on this, but
No,
you
I'll say
you
it.
you
Sorry.
created an egregious situation that you set a trap for them to see how they would
Yes,
respond. And
yes.
the non-response told you everything you needed to know about who was behind this and the character or lack of character of the people that were handling you.
And I don't mind spilling the beans because this is waited long enough.
Yep.
You ready?
Tell us. Yeah.
What I reported to my handlers once they came back and told me to re-seduce Maria and get back inside her head. I reported like slowly and piece by piece. It didn't come out and say that I had that she had visited and I had gotten her wasted. I had introduced her to drugs, and while she was kind of knocked out, I questioned her. I could find no discrepancy. Well, they were reporting directly to Comey and Brennan on video
Yep.
conference,
And
and they
Obama.
well at the personal request of Obama, and but directly on video conference, Brennan and Comey were just fine with that. So then I let them know in the next meeting that after I drugged her and questioned her, could find no discrepancies, I had sex with her. Well, the word for that is
Rape.
what? Rape.
Rape.
So I
Yeah.
let my now I didn't come out and just say it directly because these
Mhm.
agents might have blown my head off, but I put all the indications and clues in there. So I knew as soon as I left the room, they'd be comparing notes and they'd realize that I was saying I had drugged and raped this girl. Next time I saw them, they hated me, but they didn't say a word about it, which told me what?
The higher ups let it
Said,
slide.
listen, I
Yeah.
imagine that conversation says, well, we don't give a damn what Byrne did to Maria Butina. We got this Russian hoax to set up. You don't say nothing. You don't ask him a question about it. You don't say nothing. So then I waited another month or so and I proposed murdering Maria. Now, I knew there was no way Uncle Sam was going to let this slide. Now, of course, nobody knew that I have a letter in a safe back in Washington that says I can't be prosecuted. And obviously, I wouldn't do those things, but reporting those up my chain of command to see what they do, I don't know. That went all the way to the top, and Barack Obama signed a presidential finding. And they don't say this in the movie who did it, but I'm telling the world it was Barack Obama signed a presidential finding to tell 3 federal agents to ignore the belief that I had drugged and raped and might kill a girl so that we could continue setting up this fake Russian scandal and doing things like bribing Hillary Clinton so she could be blackmailed. And that happened the same month that Trump got in so much trouble for a little bit of locker room talk between guys. Not that that's nice,
Mhm.
but it's not. I've been around. I used to be a philosophy grad student. I've been around. A lot of them are female, and sometimes I'd be out to dinner with 4 or 5 women, and they kind of forget that a guy's there. They start talking like women sometimes do.
Yeah.
And Mary Grace, I learned. It may surprise you to know, but I learned that not all women are saints either on such matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but the same month Trump got vilified for that, Barack Obama signed off on the rape and murder, aggravated rape and possible murder of a girl he knew was innocent, so that we could conduct this political espionage.
It doesn't
So
surprise me. Yeah. That's
what
somebody was
I've been
asking.
I've been told that's the biggest secret in government, that there's like
Mm,
a not a focus group, but some special committee trying to figure out how to handle that and spin that. Well, the beautiful thing is you
mhm.
can't spin rape and murder. There's a presidential in the National Archives. There's a presidential signature on a presidential
Wow.
finding saying ignore rape and murder. Fuck you,
It's
Barack. Pardon me.
Well, it doesn't surprise me going back to what we were saying about the Bolsheviks. And somebody in the chat said, how could um, Obama and Hillary and the people in those higher echelons, how could they want all of us dead, right? How could they want that many people dead? It's power. It's a thirst for power. They don't actually see us as human. When you look at the pro-abortion agenda, that becomes obvious that there's a dehumanizing aspect to the way that they view the rest of us. I mean, the New World Order wants a massive depopulation. They want just enough people to serve as chattel to meet their needs. That's it. That's all they want. They don't see us as human, and they don't value life in the way that we do, because they don't have a Judeo-Christian worldview, even though they
You know,
pretend to.
yeah, there's such phonies, such phonies. But I mean, I've known so many sanctimonious academics who hold themselves out as these,
Mhm.
this and that, like guys like Obama. They're the worst people. They, I think I used to always look for that kind of an explanation. Was it for money? Is it for power? This and that. And I've been around the Christian community in the last 4 years. In a way, I was raised Catholic and then sort of walked away from all that.
Mhm.
And I have to say, there's something that the Christian community says that makes sense. That really, there are just some people who are demonic. Like you can
Yeah.
look for the explanation in terms of, well, they think this and that, and they're going to get this position or they're going to make this much money. At the end of the day, they're just
Well,
demons.
Jesus explained it, when he was talking to the Pharisees, the religious leaders of his day, which is very much in line. Today we have the political realm, but the religious realm, they operate in the same spirit. And religiously, we call that the Jezebel spirit. I've talked about that on the channel. But Jesus says to them, "You serve your father, the devil," and that's when they decided for sure to kill him, right? That was really the nail in the coffin, because he identified what you're saying, the demonic nature. It's a completely different realm. It's a spiritual battle. It's operating in the spiritual realm. But they serve two different masters. Jesus said it very easily. Nobody can serve two masters. And so when you see, we were talking about Obama before we came live. You said that he's looking angry, he's looking frustrated, he's looking defeated. That's, the angrier people are, and the more harm they cause, and the more damage they do, and the more death they inflict, the uglier they get. Because that's just, they look like their father, right? There's good and there's evil. That's my take on it. I mean,
Warren Buffett says sometimes crooks just look like crooks. And Obama is starting to look like exactly who he is.
yeah, yeah,
Listen,
exactly.
I gotta pop, Mary Grace. I've kept
Thank
someone
you.
else waiting. I kept you waiting. I'd love to come on your show anytime.
Patrick, you're welcome to come on the show. There's so much I want to talk about. I would love to have a show just to talk about Bitcoin, because we'd love to pick your brain about that. I will reach out and get you scheduled again. It's been a pleasure and honor. If you can jump on Twitter, I would love it if you would retweet the show. I did tag you there. So
I'll do
have
so.
have a wonderful day. Great to have you here. And everybody stick around. We'll have a final word before we go off of the show. This is the Mary Grace Show. We've had Patrick Byrne and the enemy within. He's not the enemy within, but he's exposed it. Great to have you here, Patrick. We will see you
Thank
back here soon.
Thank
Okay, that was fascinating. That was an amazing conversation. I'm going to put the link up here for the film. If you are not intrigued at this point, I don't know what to tell you. The Enemy Within. This is the film that we're talking about. This is a 3-part docuseries that is narrated. It's a dramatization, a narration featuring General Flynn, Patrick Byrne, other people that you will recognize. I highly recommend that you watch this. It's entertaining, but also infuriating because it outlines the truth of what was happening all the way from the inception of Russiagate all the way through the 2020 election. If you go to the website, and if you scan this code, go to get the film, use promo code Mary Grace, and you'll get 10% off of the download. And once you download it, you can watch it as many times as you want. It's a purchase, not a rental. So I do hope that everybody watches this, The Enemy Within. Just an amazing uh film. I mean, I started watching and I couldn't I couldn't stop. I mean, it's just, you get drawn in and you think, okay, I'm going to watch the first episode, and then it's so well done. And I really want to give a shout out to Matt and Joy Thayer of Sparrow Pictures, because they just did such an amazing job of creating and directing and producing this film. It's just so well done. The artistic elements of the film, it's great. I mean, this is the level that we want to see Hollywood go back to. Except this is not fiction. It's real. Yeah, and I'm looking at the comments here. It's really fantastic. For some reason it didn't get up on Rumble, so we will upload it to Rumble. But if you could, as always, share this out. Get this to as many people as you can, because there are people who still don't know. They've heard about Russiagate, they've heard about the Russia hoax. They may have some inkling of what happened, but remember, a lot of people have just come out of the fake news industrial complex, and they're just waking up to the truth, and they really don't know about any of this. They still think that Trump shouldn't do mean tweets. And so this is important. This is a very important piece of history. It's history. And Patrick is fascinating. We will definitely have him back on the show. He has a sincere desire for the truth to get out. Now, you may not all agree with him with what he's saying about truth and reconciliation. It's an interesting concept. And as a Christian, this is something that I struggle with. I think we all do, which is, how much forgiveness do you really want from me, Lord? What's the limit? Like, how little can I get away with here? Because I'm really angry with what they did to our country. I think I'm not the only one asking that question, but it's an important thing to ask. It's an important consideration. And I think that it is something to think about, something to pray about. Let me jump over to a couple of other things here. As always, if you missed seeing this live, it's maybe because you didn't get the email. And I sent out a bunch of emails because I messed up the title, so I had to send them over and over. But this show started at 2:00. If you go to my website, marygracemedia.com, you can get on my mailing list. And that's the best way to get notified of when we have shows coming out, marygracemedia.com. You can also go there and check out our affiliate partners. We have some amazing America First companies that we partner with. And when you go and make purchases from those companies, you get you're supporting America First companies, but you're also supporting the Mary Grace Show. And that's important because the purchases that you make help us get commissions here, and it helps us to keep the show going. And so we do appreciate every time you purchase from one of those companies. We have a few companies I want to highlight today. Then we're going to end with a couple of our great commercials that we run. But I want to talk to you about some of the companies we partner with. We haven't talked about MyPillow in a while. When you go to mypillow.com, you're going to get amazing specials there. You use promo code Mary Grace, and you'll get all the best prices when you put that promo code in. And we'll show their commercial. Our other great sponsor that we have is griddownchowdown.com. Those guys are doing incredible stuff. They're working with farmers out in Oklahoma, and they are bringing you grass-fed, American-grown, American-processed beef, and they're putting it in freeze-dried form. So you're going to get a pack like this, and this is a pound of ground beef, and you can just, it's all freeze-dried. You can reconstitute it with water, and it looks just like you opened a package of fresh ground beef, you can do whatever you want with it. Spaghetti sauce, tacos, hamburgers, meatballs, whatever it is you want. It's all right here in this pack. So it's incredibly convenient, good for prepping, good for just convenience. And you can do a subscription there as well. But you are helping American farmers. When you do that, you're helping preserve American farmland. That's why they're one of my favorite partners that we have here on the show. We also have our friends at Synapse, official Synapse. This is the Synapse Center for Health and Healing. This is our functional medicine partner. A lot of you are taking more interest in your health especially now that we're making America healthy again. I recommend that you go and you partner with them and get started on getting to the root cause and developing a better foundation or solving some problems that have been going on for however long for you. But that's it for now. And I want to check the comments one more time before we go. It looks like we did have people over on YouTube. So thank you for watching over there. This has been an incredibly good show. I'm very happy about how it went in spite of all the technical issues. So please, if you come back for the replay, just know that we had some technical issues in the beginning, and we just rolled with it, did the best we could, and then finally Patrick was able to get on. And it is what it is. We're the media now, and we're doing the best we can. And sometimes we have technical issues, and we don't have an army of producers to troubleshoot, and we do the best we can. That's it. Remember to come back, bookmark my shows, Mary Grace, The Mary Grace Show, marygracemedia.com, and we will have some more great shows coming to you. We have some really good content lined up for the weekend. So bookmark it. We have a show at 10 o'clock Saturday morning. It's our live Q&A with Dr. Troy Sproul. And then we also have one of your favorites coming on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. I hope everybody has a great day, a great afternoon, and we will see you back here soon. Thank you again for all of your participation and for taking part with us today. We will see you soon.
Our Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. Our famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. Regularly $119.98, now only $59.98. Our 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities, only $29.98. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save on all MyPillow products. For example, flannel sheets for as low as $59.98, or our 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. But that's not all. I'm extending our 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 or more ship absolutely free.
More now than ever on healthcare, and we're sicker than almost anybody in the world. We've put our trust in a system that's completely let us down. Dr. Troy Sproul and the team at Synapse Center for Health and Healing have changed all that. They are a functional medicine clinic, and they get to the root cause of what's made you sick in the first place. Once they do that, they give you solutions to help you get out of that. This is the way that medicine was meant to be practiced, and this is what they're doing. They're changing the entire system from the inside out, one person at a time, and you could be one of those people. And so when you're working with the team at Synapse, they're giving you solutions and not just prescriptions. That's a game changer for me. When you set up a free discovery call with Synapse, you're starting on a journey of healing. You're starting on a journey of getting answers. And that's why I've partnered with them, because I want you to be healthy. I want your family to be healthy. I want you to have all of the resources that you need to steward the body and the health that God's given you. Go to officialsynapse.com and gift, tell them Mary Grace sent you. That's Official Synapse, synapse.com.
This is my brother. I'm Nace, and we're at the Grid Down Chowdown, and this is Larry, who is a local rancher that we've partnered with. Now, Larry, you've been ranching for over 4 generations, is that correct?
That's correct. I'm 3rd generation, my son's 4th generation, and I've got some grandkids that are 5th generation.
Man, that's
We've
awesome.
been here for quite a while, yeah.
All right, now, Larry, your cattle is grass-fed, grass-finished, and pasture-raised, just like God intended them to be.
Yes, because I want to know what's in that animal,
Right.
what it's been fed, and so the only way to do that is for us to keep it all natural, just like God has done it for years and years and years, thousands of years.
How has partnering up with us helped you and your ranch?
Well, it's allowed us to develop a market that we didn't have before, one that can get directly to the consumer, and that's great.
And just remember, more importantly, with every package that you buy, we put a salvation track in there. So from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for allowing us to do what we believe that God has us here to do. And just remember, God loves you. He really does.
Amen.
Go to griddownchowdown.com and use promo code Mary Grace.